The bookies have Manchester City as favourites to win this year's Champions League, 7-2 ahead of Barca and Liverpool. And once again, Pep Guardiola's side's got a nice draw. Atalanta, Dinamo Zagreb, and for the third year in a row, it is Shakhtar Donetsk. And that's prompted a tweet, Mark. I don't know what you think about this. There's enough rules already, but should teams be barred to be in the same group as the previous year in the Champions League?
I don't think so, but I think a lot of Man City fans would probably agree, because I think, as we know, that Man City fans have yet to kind of fall in love with the Champions League, and I don't think their group stages in recent years have helped. They've all been very kind of unexciting. They've not really had a glamour tie early on. Now, the football staff and the people at the club, the higher-ups, will say it's great. You know, it gives a great chance to get through to the knockout stage. But I do think that it's the Champions League, and you do want a bit of star quality. And you know, they've got Shakhtar again. They can't go to Donetsk because of the conflicts in the Ukraine, so they're playing in Donetsk is kind of home away from home, so there's a bit of an issue there. Then the Atalanta aren't playing at home; they're playing in San Siro because their stadium isn't big enough. So it's a very odd group for City in the sense that they'll get through it. There's not much kind of tension in terms of qualification, and the teams that they're going to be playing against aren't exactly, you know, star teams. So I do feel sorry for City in the sense that to grow the club, to grow the sense of Europe being a big thing, they need some of these kind of bigger games that, you know, that Madrid have got, PSG and Barcelona, but it is what it is, and Pep Guardiola will be delighted because it's clearly a route through to the knockout stages.
Change the rules?
I don't think so. I don't see the use for it, and I don't see the need for it. And to be quite honest, the Manchester City fans are so spoiled right now that they need to have a glamour team to recognize and appreciate that's a European night. And come on now. Come on now. Kidding me?
I'm not sure. I mean, how do you... Mark, how would you possibly get Man City fans into the building unless the group was a crazy group? Like say the one... Not that it's that crazy, but the Barcelona group, for example. Are you saying that Man City fans would rather... Or you think that Man City fans would get excited if that's the kind of group they were in?
Do you know something? I think they're getting bored now. They're getting bored with winning. Not bored to the sense they don't like it, but it's become a little bit too easy to be a Man City fan. I do think that they will like a challenge, and you know, the biggest European games in the last couple of years have been against English teams, against Liverpool in the Champions League a couple of years ago and Tottenham last year. And I think, you know, we've all been involved in games at the Champions League as a reporter or as a player, which they're special European games, and I think City fans haven't had that yet. And I can see they've got a lot of issues with the away from the Champions League, but one of the reasons is that they find these games unappealing. So City kind of people mock City a bit for not being able to fill the ground in European nights, but if you're having to sell tickets for Shakhtar Donetsk for the third year in a row, Atalanta, then I can see it. But to be fair, if you're Man City, you'd rather be a Man City fan than a Man United fan who are waiting a Europa League draw on Friday, which could take them to all corners of Europe and play even more unglamorous teams. So, you know, you've got to be careful what you wish for.
Meanwhile, let's talk about Chelsea's group. It's a good group. Certainly a difficult one to call. Chelsea, I'm surprised they're such big favourites. 4-1 on. To make it through. Ajax and Valencia then 11-10 on. Lille at 11-4. Chelsea would have taken this, wouldn't they, Mark, at the start?
Yeah, but you know, I think it's a great draw. I think, you know, Ajax have lost key players, Matthias de Ligt and Frenkie de Jong. So Ajax is a good tie for Chelsea in the sense that it's a big club, but they're not what they were. Valencia, again, they basically crept into the fourth position on the final weekend of the season in La Liga. So, and Lille, again, finished a long way adrift of PSG. So it's not the strongest group, but it's a group where, you know, Chelsea won the Europa League last season, that they're a European team, they know how to win in Europe. So for Chelsea, it's a team it's a group that's got a bit of glamour, a bit of history with it, but also it's a group that hasn't got a lot of danger attached to it. People say that Ajax and Valencia could cause them problems, but I do think that Chelsea should be on a different level to those teams.
Valencia will take it as well, won't they, Sid?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, bear in mind, again, as I said before, you have to take this into the context of what was possible. And given which pot you come out of, from Chelsea's point of view, it was always going to be slightly easier because, of course, they came out of the top pot. From Valencia's point of view, it could have been a lot harder in terms of the two teams that theoretically are superior to them. Obviously, with Valencia, I think the fundamental question really, though, is what kind of Valencia are going to see. Now, for those who don't know, of course, Valencia won the Copa del Rey last year, the first title they won for well over a decade. They got into a Champions League place. There was a real sense of this was a club that was getting things right, that had stability at last, that knew exactly where it was going, that had a manager that was very, very bright and connected with his players. And then what's happened over the summer is that there's been a crisis. There's been a crisis at an institutional level. There's essentially a division now between the Valencia that's being run from Singapore and the Valencia that's been run from Valencia. And we don't know how this is going to end. I mean, between now and the end of the transfer window, for example, we do think that Rodrigo will almost certainly leave for Atletico Madrid. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if in the next 3 or 4 weeks, if results aren't good, that Marcelino, the manager, either walks away or gets sacked. I think there's a really big storm coming at Valencia, so it's very, very difficult to know what kind of shape they'll be in once, by the time the Champions League actually starts.
Music to Chelsea's ears, Stevie.
Oh, big time. You know, had Ajax kept those players, then no question they would have been favourites, in my opinion. And, you know, Valencia, I thought, were stable. I thought they were looking forward to a good season, and then Sid comes up with that. Chelsea must be licking the chops.
Sid could be talking nonsense, though. Never know. Just stirring the pot.
There you go.
Talk nonsense.
What else is new?
Sid is anti-Valencia propaganda. Meanwhile, in Group B, you've got Bayern Munich along with last year's finalists Spurs. Both heavy favourites to advance. You can see why, considering they're joined with Olympiacos and Red Star Belgrade. Could have been a lot worse for Pochettino's side, Mark.
It could have been, but I do think that they've got to be careful in this group, Tottenham, because they've been really inconsistent over the last 6 months. They've lost a lot of games, and there seems to be, like Sid was talking about Valencia, there does seem to be a bit of a storm brewing at Tottenham with Pochettino and, Eriksen, if he stays, if he goes. The players they've brought in, Vertonghen hasn't played very much this season. So if Spurs aren't at the game, I think certainly Red Star away, as Liverpool found out last season, is a very tough place to go. And, Red Star might just have it in them if they can maintain their really good home form, that they could shock Tottenham if Tottenham aren't at it. I think Bayern will go through as group winners. But Tottenham, for me, I don't know, I think that they might have a problem if they're not 100% at it, and they're not 100% at it right now.